Ultimately, for us on the programmatic side, it's really about our matrix sales gateway. The sales gateway is really seeking to bring in a lot of efficiencies into the process to help maximize the value of the various inventories you're selling, reduce errors, etc. And as we develop that gateway, it's also going to have those components because it's doing that electronic communication back and forth, bringing in information, putting information out. Also because we as an organization have proprietary algorithms that can do a lot of that internal matching. And that in and of itself will start allowing the clients that come onto the gateway to say, how do we want to do programmatic in a managed sort of way? Now, within the next year as an industry, if you really ask me, I think saying that we'll be at a point where we're doing a lot of programmatic in the next year, I would probably say no. But if you ask me, will we be doing it in 3 years from now at a higher level? I will tell you absolutely.
We've taken a position at Hearst Television that we would prefer not to build. So we prefer to buy or lease technology. So we also have targeted trying to find best of breed technology. And, again, so we're working with our existing vendors, and we've accumulated a variety of what we consider best in industry technology. And now the challenge is trying to get them to all work together. Companies like Matrix are very easy to integrate in and out of. Other vendors are not as easy to accomplish that with, but it's a challenge that we've tried to take. We've tried to compartmentalize our tech stack, and we're using a digital OMS that is separate from our linear traffic system. We're doing analytics and analysis on a different platform on the back end. And what we've been able to accomplish is extracting all the data from all these systems, bringing them into a data mart, normalizing all that data. And that's given us a competitive advantage to get at all that data and not only use it for decision support, but to use it to work with our individual third-party vendors for other services that are wrapping around the tech stack.
So coming off the pandemic year, and I know the pandemic is not officially over, but from the consumer marketplace, things are picking up tremendous steam, and that has really radically changed the marketplace dynamics from last year. Additionally, as everyone knows, there's been a decline in traditional media impressions as viewers have migrated their behavior towards OTT and streaming services, and in many cases, places where there's no ads, sadly. And so there's a nice tailwind for us on the sales side this year, as buyers are scrambling to find that premium inventory and those impressions in a shrinking linear marketplace, as well as advertisers shift their dollars over to OTT options. So we're pretty excited to get into it, and hopefully we'll be talking soon, with the numbers and negotiating CPMs, et cetera.
From a consumer experience, and that's probably the most important piece, especially as we head into the competitive world of streaming, we're coming at it from a little bit of a different standpoint. Our linear broadcast and cable networks have incredibly high live usage. Haven't seen the kind of drop off that the English language broadcasters have had, in part because of our programming strategy, in part because of our audience. As we head into, so that's a great experience, and we're relatively happy with the advertising and how that plays out, especially for advertisers who join us in Spanish language advertising. That is highly effective. As we look at our streamer, Prende TV, which is a huge library of content. Plus, we'll be announcing that there'll be new premium originals, live sports, a 24/7 news channel. So with that streamer, we, from an AVOD perspective, are significantly lower on ad load by choice than many of the other AVOD services. It'd be about 7.5 minutes. And so we're very conscious of the experience. We're being careful with not just ad load, but the number of different ad products floating around at any given time. and making sure it's an incredible sort of viewing experience that really engages our audience. Right now, we're seeing about 2+ hours a week from our users, and we're really happy with how that's shaping up.
So in the CTV space, we're just definitely starting to see more signals come into play. Obviously, the third-party DMPs and all of the data that's accessible today is being used and being more heavily used within PMPs. But as the space evolves in CTV, I think more publishers and advertisers are trying to figure out how to onboard their own first-party data for use. We've seen a lot of interest in advertisers wanting to use XUMO's first-party data as well. Obviously, we have a lot of rich data around content, time watched, and users. And then I think towards the back half of this year, we'll see some movement into some of the other data targeting mechanisms out there for addressability, whether that's LiveRamp's IDL or UID 2.0.
We're seeing a very large focus on audience. I think FreeWheel is well positioned. We're helping to resolve audience in the TV ecosystem in a way that protects the consumer first and foremost, but in addition to that, allows for the data owner, whether that be the advertiser, the agency, or the publisher, or the MVPD, or anyone in between, to remain in control of that data. And I think that's what's really important. How do you create a platform that allows for the usage of data, but perhaps not necessarily the transition or passing of that data from one entity to the other? We think that's that's core to what we do, and why it's so critical that we continue to focus on identity resolution, but do it in a way that is, one, safety and privacy compliant, and two, a way that remains puts control back into the hands of either the agency or whoever the data owner is, or of course the publisher or the MVPD.
So I think there's two things to understand with the programmatic marketplace. The first one is that it's really big. The last I checked, it is a $200 billion global marketplace. And I think the second piece is that it's really robust. And the reason for that is really CTV. CTV has been the accelerant in the programmatic marketplace, and that's really caused it to take off. And in fact, 80% of US CTV households can get programmatic advertising delivered to them. So we understand that programmatic is becoming a much bigger part of what we do, and certainly our clients' media mix. And we understand it's good for both buyers and sellers, and we understand why. For buyers, it certainly gives them efficiencies in their workflows. It gives them dashboards that allow them to look at their spending and make sure that that spending is hitting their intended targets. I think for Fox and our media companies, and this really speaks to the role of SSPs, it allows us to practice some really good yield management, serving the right impression to the right brand at the right time. Also allows us to manage demand and manage our inventory. So it makes us a lot smarter, and all of that is done in a split second. So it makes us faster, which is really something we want to continue to do. So we continue to see programmatic as a huge part of what we're doing moving forward. It's certainly a very large part of our Tubi business and certainly our news business, but programmatic will continue to be a driving force for Fox.
Well, where we're hyper-focused, and we've delivered this for Comcast, the Xfinity brand, obviously because we are a major advertiser ourselves, is what we've seen and what we've solved for is the challenge of, as I've sort of alluded to before, bridging the linear and digital divide. So making sure that we have a platform that you can absolutely see through transparency, through control, through efficiency, of what specific creative asset or a version of asset has landed on which particular channel. That becomes really critical to have that unified view to ensure that then you can apply attribution and optimization around that. So really what we're about is, we're not saying we're the silver bullet. There is a lot of point-based solutions that do bit parts and connect all these dots. But certainly the platform that we've built is an aggregation platform that brings a lot of these points together to then give the advertiser and the brand that total view of what's happening from an creative asset management perspective. And so that's the key thing that we've solved from a manual perspective and driven automation through that to then solve the problem of scale.